So just one brief announcement from public transit. The Dinky reopening is set for May 12th, Sunday, Mother's Day, for all the mothers who would like to ride on the Dinky. And we'll be having a combination celebration and question and answer session with the New Jersey Department of Transportation Deputy Commissioner. And that will be on Tuesday, May 14th at the Dinky Station at 6:30. So I think in light of Alexander Road closing later in the year, it's a really good opportunity to talk to the commissioner, the deputy commissioner, about what their plans will be for that, and to just show them that people really care about the Dinky service. So if you have some free time and want to come down and show up, there'll be free coffee at the Wawa and free pretzels, I'm told, as well. So that's it. Thanks.
Just going to repeat an announcement we made last week. The Sustainable Princeton is holding their first annual Green Fest this Saturday at the shopping center. I believe it's 11 to 3. And it's a rollout or building awareness of the Climate Action Plan, which they're seeking community input for, but it's really going to be family oriented. I heard today they're going to have an electric bike manufacturer with bikes that you can ride, and electric car manufacturers with model cars, so it should be interesting and fun for all.
I do just have a few. I want to announce again that recruitment for the Youth Advisory Committee for the 2019-2020 academic year is ongoing. In addition to looking to fill 4 vacancies with rising sophomores, this year we have one rising senior who will not be returning due to other commitments. So there's a unique opportunity for students who may have been interested in serving in the past but missed the cutoff for the grade they were in. So any student who's going to be a senior next year can apply to be on the Youth Advisory Committee. The deadline to submit applications is May 24th. And last time I checked, we had no applications, 0 applications. And I have teenagers myself, so I know all about waiting till the last moment when there's a deadline. But I want to point out that for those that are interested, students who apply will also have the option to select their slot for the interview. And that's going to be on the first come, first serve. So students who are interested in applying should do sooner rather than later and then select their interview slot. I also want to announce that last week, Mayor Lempert and I met to discuss the upcoming 2020 census and the need for us to start strategizing how we can ensure maximum participation. The importance being that the count determines how congressional districts are allocated and also how federal spending dollars are distributed. This year, there's a question that is right now going through the Supreme Court, is being considered, that's been actually turned down in district courts, but the Supreme Court is now considering the citizenship question. And we expect a ruling sometime in June. Historically, the immigrant population and also children tend to be undercounted, and if this question is on there, we expect the count is going to be even lower. New Jersey has already established a commission called the New Jersey Complete Count Commission. Last week, I had the opportunity to speak with Assemblywoman Verlina Reynolds-Jackson, who's a member of that commission, and she has offered to provide information regarding the Complete Count initiative, what other communities in New Jersey are planning, and she has also indicated that upon request, we can also have someone from the state come to Princeton to provide guidance. We are looking to form a steering committee of community leaders to start working on our local efforts to ensure that everyone in our community is counted. And I think last we discussed that we were aiming to have a meeting sometime in June so that we can start organizing what our local complete count initiative will be. But I'm also want to put it up to my colleagues here on council. If you have any suggestions or that you may have, please share. And just one last reminder that tomorrow we'll be holding a dog park public interest meeting here in the community room at 7 p.m. Bring ideas and suggestions, and also invite your friends and neighbors that you think may be interested.
No announcements, but I'd just like to thank Councilwoman Fraga for what she said about the census, and I'd love to participate on the Complete Count Initiative.
Great.
Yep.
All right, I have a few announcements. The first is that we're going to be holding a second council meeting this week on Wednesday night on campus. There's a student group there that has invited us, and we're not going to be taking any action. It'll be a discussion with students, but it'll be an open public meeting at the Wig Clio building at 7 p.m. That's on Wednesday, May 8th. On Monday, May 13th, so a week from tonight, council will be holding a special meeting. The topic will be affordable housing. And on May 17th, which is a Friday, it will be Princeton night at the Trenton Thunder game. And at the very least, it'll be entertaining because I'll be throwing out the first pitch. So hopefully you'll be laughing with me, not at me. The Wheels Rodeo, the annual Wheels Rodeo, which is a collaboration between the Princeton Police and Princeton Human Services, will be on Saturday, May 18th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And for somebody who's working on that, is that here in this parking lot? Yes, here in the parking lot. And if it rains, then it'll be on May 19th, also from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And are there any staff announcements? Nope. Okay. Then we'll move on to our award of recognition for this evening, and I want to turn the microphone over to Councilman Tim Quinn, who's also the town's fire commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor. With all the recent attention being paid to the necessity for Princeton to hire career firefighters to supplement our volunteer company, I think there's no better time than now to honor our volunteer firefighters. In fact, I would like to see this kind of ceremony become a yearly event for our firefighters and for members of our rescue squad. I don't think we can say thank you enough to those who sacrifice to ensure our safety. So tonight, we honor 7 members of our Princeton Fire Department, including 3 who are part of the affiliate program operated in partnership with Princeton University, and a member of our fire police. Whether responding to calls in town or on campus, all are members of the Princeton Fire Department. They are part of a proud legacy dating to 1788, when the first fire company was organized in Princeton just 5 years at the end of the War of Independence. Now, some have said that hiring career firefighters will effectively end our volunteer department, but I don't think that has to be the case, and this is certainly not the intention of the working group involved in the transition. We have a great example of a combination department in another group of first responders, the Princeton First Aid and Rescue Squad, which we will honor on May 20th with a proclamation marking Emergency Services Week. So with that said, I'd like to welcome Fire Chief Sal Baldino and Assistant Chief T.R. Johnson to the podium and invite my colleagues to leave the dais to congratulate and honor the top responders among our volunteer firefighters.
Good evening. My name is Deputy Chief Johnson of the Princeton Fire Department. We're here to recognize the top 3 responders out of Princeton Fire Department Station 60. All 3 of these members went above and beyond. They did countless duty nights, countless training hours, and definitely answered multiple calls in the middle of the night when they could have stayed home and gotten a good night's rest. So the number 1 top responder out of the Princeton Fire Department was Dev Zavari. Number 2 top responder out of the Princeton Fire Department was Keith Wadsworth. And the number 3 top responder of the Princeton Fire Department was Ziad. Dev.
Going to do a reenactment.
Now we're going to move along to the associate program, which is done through Princeton University. They are actually a part of the Princeton Fire Department. They have played a very big and huge part in keeping us volunteer. If it wasn't for them, we would have been a career a long time ago. We work hand in hand with them day in, day out, and we can't do anything more but say thank you. The number 3 top responder from the associate program is Michael Curvan. He's also a chief of the Cranberry Fire Department. The number 2 top responder from the associate program is Chris Shannon. And the number 1 top responder from the associate program is Kevin Durham. At this time, I'd like to call up William Shields, Captain of the Fire Police, past Chief of the Princeton Fire Department, to present the Fire Police Award.
I'd like to call up Doug Davis. He's a big asset to the fire police, lives in town. He happens to have a son also who is one of the deputy chiefs in town also. So I'd like to thank Doug particularly. He's a big asset. He motivates a lot of the people that get out there. And if a lot of us can't make a lot of calls, he's there all the time. Thank you, Doug.
And I think you guys we can return to the dais as I introduced Patrolman Jorge Narvez, who is going to be presenting an award and a proclamation to our fire department. And you can explain what this award is for, and when you're done, you can put the mic back up there.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be presenting a banner that was actually made in Nicaragua, and this is for the fire department, Princeton, for their donation of the MAC, which is being utilized in Nicaragua. This was thanks to the help of my dear friend Ray Wadsworth, who was this tip of the spear to make this happen. So they made the banner basically which reads, "In recognition of the Princeton Fire Department for their support." It's actually in English, by the way. We will be forever grateful. Managua, Nicaragua, and it has the U.S. flag, the Nicaraguan flag, the fire department logo, and the fire department for Nicaragua's logo, so you can have it. I'm very grateful for all of the support that I received from the fire department with turnout gear and equipment. And again, Ray Watts, from our dear friend, was really the tip of the spear to make that happen. And he never knew what he did when he started that, because after that there was a bunch of other stuff that's been happening from other fire departments in the state. And I'm very grateful, and I'll always remember that. Now I'm going to be presenting small certificates of recognition. This is in connection with the aerial tower that was sent in February over to Nicaragua that was donated by Hamilton, but Princeton again stepped up to the plate, and specifically 3 members, Chief Baldino, Bob Gregory, and Joe Novak were instrumental in helping me a lot with making this happen. Just to give you a little background information, Hamilton donated the truck, the fire truck, and it got to a point that because these programs with the military takes a long time, and the political turmoil in the country kind of delayed the truck getting sent over there by the Air Force, I had to get the truck out of the Hamilton firehouse, and they needed the room. So Joe Novak was nice enough to tell me, and I thought he was kidding around actually. He says, "I have a driveway in my house, you can park the truck on my driveway." I said, "Joe, it's a big truck." He goes, it's a long driveway. So Joe went with me to Hamilton and picked up the truck and put it and stored it in his driveway until it was ready to get sent over to Nicaragua. So it was very nice of him to actually let me allow to use his house to store the truck, you know. Wow. Sal and Bob were very supportive from day one. Whenever I asked for anything, they were there to help me out. They allowed me to use the firehouse on Harrison Street to build the ramp that was utilized to be able to get the truck into the aircraft. And I was pulling my hairs out of my head to get that done. I didn't have whatever little I have. And I couldn't find a place to get it, so, you know, Bob was nice enough to make room there to get the carpenter, who donated his time, by the way, also to build this stuff. And without their support, this would have never happened. This is not me. It isn't about me. It's about helping other people with the support of people like them, and everyone, you know, the support that I received from town and all the members of the fire department. I'm very, very grateful. So I have this stuff in Spanish, and I'll try to do a little translation of it so that you know. From the Benemérito Cuerpo de Bomberos de Managua, fundado el 15 de septiembre de 1936, declarado Benemérito de la Patria el 25 de julio de 1946. La Honorable Junta Directiva del Benemérito Cuerpo de Bomberos de Managua, en acuerdo número 02, de fecha 29 de enero del año 2019, acordó único entregar formal reconocimiento al Chief Sal Bandino del Princeton Fire Department por su apoyo desinteresado en la gestión de la donación de una unidad contra incendios, Aerial 95 Ladder Fire Truck, that's in English, by the way, a beneficio de nuestra institución, Managua, Nicaragua, 3 de febrero del año 2019, firmado por el comandante primer jefe y por el secretario de la Junta Directiva. So basically this is coming from the Board of Trustees from the Fire Department in Nicaragua. The fire department was actually established there on September 15th of 1936. That's what it says in the top here. Giving formal recognition to Chief Sal Bandino for all the support and getting, making that, you know, the ladder truck, making it over to Nicaragua for the use over there. This was dated February 3rd, 2019, and signed by the chief over there and their secretary. So, Chief, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You got one for, let me give you. This is another recognition. This is for Bob Gregory, again, given by the Board of Trustees of the Fire Department. It pretty much treats the same as the other one, but it has Robert Gregory, Director of the Princeton Fire Department, for all his steadfast support in getting also, again, the ladder truck over to Nicaragua, dated February 3rd, 2019, signed by the Chief and the Secretary of the Board of Trustees of the Fire Department. department. Thank you, Bob. Thank you so much for allowing this to happen in the council meeting. And again, thank you for the town and their support for making this happen. I'm continue to work on these efforts. I'm actually trying to get another truck and an ambulance to be sent over there part to a remote village that doesn't have a fire department. And my goal is to establish a small volunteer fire department actually in this little village. So hopefully that happens. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think everybody in this room is just filled with incredible gratitude for the work that all of you do and for making Princeton the kind of place that it is. So we're really so thankful to all of you, and thank you for coming out tonight, and not just for keeping us safe here, but offering gifts to the world too. It's really special, and we're really appreciative of all the work. So thank you.
Mayor, if I could, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we're at the start of a volunteer recruiting drive, so anyone who is in the audience or watching at home or on YouTube, we need volunteers, and we're going to be sending a mailer out in all homes in Princeton, and so if you know anyone who's interested, we welcome you to join our fire department, and which has a proud history. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you again. And you're welcome to stay, but you don't have to either. So. So we have two proclamations for this evening. The first is for May is Walk and Bike to School Month. And the second one, we have folks who are here to receive it, so I'm going to read part of it. And this is a proclamation declaring June 7th to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in Princeton, and you'll see many of us wearing orange, or like little bits of orange, because that is the color in honor of National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Every day, 96 Americans are killed by gun violence, and there are more than 35,000 gun deaths each year. Americans are 20 times more likely to be killed with guns than people in other developed countries. June 7, 2019 begins the weekend that would have included the 22nd birthday of Hadiya Pendleton, a teenager who marched in President Obama's second inaugural parade and was tragically shot and killed just weeks later. And whereas to help honor Hadiya and the 96 Americans whose lives are cut short and the countless survivors who are injured by shootings every day, a national coalition of organizations has designated June 7, 2019 as the 5th annual National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Now therefore, I, Liz Lempert, Mayor of Princeton, County of Mercer, State of New Jersey, do hereby declare June 7 to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the municipality of Princeton, and encourage all citizens to support their local communities' efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. Okay, and I would like to entertain a motion to amend the agenda to move up Resolution 19-128, which is the resolution concerning the Senior Resource Center.
So moved.
Second.
So the amendment to, the motion to change the agenda is moved by Mr. Cohen, seconded by Mr. Quinn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now we'll take up Resolution 19-128, resolution authorizing extraordinary unspecifiable service contract with the Princeton Senior Resource Center to provide various programs and services to older adults and their families in an amount not to exceed $149,400. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Krumiller.
Second.
And seconded by Mr. Cohen. Is there any discussion? This was tabled from the last meeting where there were some questions, but are there any further questions or comments?
I just wanted to mention they understand from Drew Dyson that he had a very productive meeting and is completely happy with the revised language and is appreciative to Mark DeShield for his help with that.
Okay, great. And there were a couple people who signed up to speak on this. Lenore Sylvan? And if you'd like, you can come up to speak, but you don't have to. And also Judith Walzer. Sure.
I just wanted to share with you the wonderful, wonderful Resource Center philosophy. Whoops. Okay. Good. Thank you. When my husband and I first moved here, we lived in Skillman. And he had always been a volunteer working with young people. And unfortunately, there was nothing in Skillman. And he went down to Princeton Senior Resource Center. And he picked up whatever he could do. He used to deliver food to people. He used to pick up books and take them to older people. Whatever someone needed it to do. The brunch at home, that was his favorite. He used to get all the food. I, in turn, had gone over to Gribben School, and they accepted me. Was it Gribben? Yeah. No, my old school was Gribben, I'm sorry. It was Community Park. And they accepted me, again, Princeton Resource Center. And I think by taking people who may not live in Princeton and utilizing the skills that they have and helping the community in that way, it was a valuable, valuable move for us. And of course, now I'm living in Princeton, so there would be no problem at all. But I just wanted to thank the Princeton Senior Resource Center and the town of Princeton. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Judy Walzer, and I am an enthusiastic participant in PSRC activities for the past 11 years since I retired. Most of what I've done has been in Evergreen Forum. I've taught courses. I've been a student. I've been on the steering committee, and I've been chair of the curriculum committee. We have about 28 courses per term for the past year or so, and that means between 500 and 600 students. We get more students in the fall term than the spring term, and I would love somebody to explain that to me, but that's the way it happens. It's a very productive and creative environment for everybody who uses it. There are lots of activities, a computer lab, exercise classes of all kinds, games that people play, ping pong, art classes, a memoir class, and of course, movies. And I haven't taken part in all of those things, but in most of them. So I wanted you to know that.
Great, thank you.
Kate Warren, Jefferson Road. I just wanted to ask, as a taxpayer, the $149,000, is there a way to account for how much of that money, is it totally earmarked for people who live in Princeton, or is it just part of their general fund? And do you get an accounting of what services for the $149 were spent on on Princeton residents.
Well, I'm going to see if Mark DeShield wants to comment on that. The services are outlined in the contract here, and there's language that says that the services are provided to residents, to aging adults residing within the municipality of Princeton. But I'll ask Mark if anything to add to that.
Right, just to add to what the mayor indicated. What they do is they provide a service to the municipality of Princeton, available to all residents, elder residents of Princeton, for various services throughout the year. And it's very specified in this contract that they will do that.
Spoke about that, yeah.
So I'm just wondering if you actually get an accounting each year when they come for funding, which I fully support. Yes. But do you get an accounting of the money that you allocated was spent, you know, sort of how many people from Princeton did each one of those activities, or how you reached out to the affordable housing seniors? You know, do you get an accounting?
What we receive each year is more of a general accounting of all the services being provided. We haven't gotten a breakdown in terms of just the individuals for Princeton, but I'm sure if we ask, they could provide us that information.
But I trust you all that you all think that you're getting your money's worth.
Thank you.
I mean, I'll just quickly comment, Kate, because we heard last meeting when this resolution came for the first time that approximately, if I remember correctly, about 80% of the PSRC's funding comes from sources other than the municipality, and that the services that are provided by PSRC go to almost the inverse ratio, about 80% Princeton residents. So because it's so lopsided in our favor, we haven't felt the need to delve deeper than that.
Thank you. All right, so there's been a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the resolution passes unanimously. And now we'll go back to where we were in the agenda, which is our presentations. And the first presentation is on Geographic Information System, otherwise known as GIS. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Grosser.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, we will be discussing Geographic Information Systems, also known as GIS, and its place within Princeton. GIS is most regularly used currently by our Engineering Department and Sewer Operating Committee, and tonight we'll discuss the technology, the software a little bit, in an attempt to solidify some ideas for next steps for GIS in Princeton. We'll also discuss our current operating platform as it stands and some of the results of a recent consultant's review of our current platform and capabilities. Tonight we'll be discussing what GIS is and the overarching goal for GIS in Princeton. We'll then review GIS's current state in Princeton, including a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats analysis that will shed some light on where we currently are. We'll then discuss options that exist within GIS and how internal and external platforms can vary. And we'll wrap up with some other examples of GIS used around the state with a review of a proposed timeline. Geographic Information Systems, also known as GIS, is data or layers which are laid over a map showing their relation to space, locations, and features of that map. The main purpose seeks to visualize data as a map versus some other type of chart. GIS is a framework for gathering, managing, and analyzing data. Rooted in the science of geography, GIS integrates many types of data. It analyzes spatial location and organizes layers of information into visualizations using maps and 3D scenes. With this unique capability, GIS reveals deeper insights into data such as patterns, relationships, and situations, helping users make smarter decisions, which cultivates improved efficiency. As we continue through the presentation this evening, we would like Mayor and Council to think about the following questions. Does an external GIS interface make sense in Princeton? Do the resources required match the possible reward for those efforts? If we choose to go that route, which features do we believe the public would want to use? If we decide to continue to use GIS internally and go that route, at least for now, what suggestions can Mayor and Council provide that can assist with the improvement of our current system, and what resources would those require? So why are we discussing this evening? It has been around for some time, invented back in 1965 in Harvard. What brought this conversation upon us tonight? Mayor and Council have specified that GIS is a tool that should be evaluated and have included in their list of annual goals and priorities. As a result, we've hired a consultant to perform interviews of all municipal departments to determine what data is currently available for a GIS platform, along with the SWOT analysis of our capabilities. The consultant provided a list of current geospatial data sets currently operating within Princeton. Over the course of several years, Princeton has taken steps at the departmental level to implement GIS. These include independent efforts by several departments. Engineering uses an open source GIS database. Princeton Sewer Operating Committee uses an Esri licensed GIS database. And several staff operate and maintain the GIS interfaces, and many departments request information from those databases. However, this approach in Princeton has not followed a municipal-wide perspective. Most departments ask engineering for the information or maps rather than using the GIS system themselves. Sewer data in the PSOC system has been updated on paper maps. However, the GIS layers within the GIS system remain static. Engineering and zoning currently use the open source GIS on a regular basis for projects, construction, and various other projects to gather information on setbacks, soil, water, etc. And one drawback on that current system is that the training is not currently provided, and procedures and workflow are relatively limited. In several instances, GIS data has multiple copies. For instance, the current open source GIS database has a sewer lateral layer. However, it's not current due to PSOC only updating the maps on paper and not within this GIS database. So going forward, Princeton needs to develop a single source for GIS data and develop workflows to ensure all GIS data is updated and current. Princeton needs to identify if they would like a GIS to act as a tool for residents or to continue on internally as we are right now. If we make this a tool for residents, the public-facing portal for GIS on the website would be able to be queried and navigated and would have to be updated on a daily basis. As I mentioned, currently engineering has some very useful but basic information updated on an internal platform for GIS, as I mentioned, called open source. These data sets are updated in the summer by an intern, and since they're updated only in the summer months, they have the tendency to be outdated if there are significant changes to, say, a roadway, leaf brush schedule, or land use or zoning changes. This list provides a great foundation to expand our current GIS platform from, thanks in part to engineering and their focus during the summer with a very talented intern. So looking at our SWOT analysis, it was employed because best practices demonstrate with this process it should be used when revamping internal policies, considering opportunities to pivot, or altering a plan in motion. Here, our GIS SWOT demonstrates key areas of opportunity, as well as important weaknesses and threats to investigate while determining our next steps towards improved internal GIS functions or an external facing platform. Due to the detail of this chart, I'll highlight some big takeaways from the analysis. Looking at strengths, we're fortunate that engineering has taken the leap to make GIS work within their department. Although there are improvements to be made and additional functionality to be explored, we are beyond starting from scratch due to their due diligence with the technology. PSOC has also taken the leap to use GIS to improve their record keeping and operations by plotting various lines. Also, Mayor and Council are obviously supportive of this project and are enthusiastic about finding new methods that may improve our efficiency to serve the public better. It's no surprise there are several weaknesses present with our current status within GIS technology. Although it's a strength that two of our departments have begun to utilize the technology, it also prevents a weakness in that we have two separate systems that don't communicate with one another. which means that to move forward, we'll have to bring these two departments into the same platform to create a municipal-wide system. A large threat to our GIS system is the lack of support staff to maintain GIS database. We do not currently have anyone on staff that knows how to keep the existing GIS platform current and how to add to it. An item council will need to decide upon is if we want to grow our GIS capabilities, it will likely require a devoted staff member and likely a corresponding GIS committee or governance committee to provide guidance and support, which we'll discuss a little bit later in the presentation. And lastly, with opportunities, there are many. Many other towns and counties employ some form of GIS. Although they vary greatly in terms of capabilities, they offer options for Princeton to follow when we decide on what type of resources we would like to commit to GIS. Departments have also begun to think about what data is available for GIS-related systems. On this slide, we'll review some recommendations to move GIS implementation forward. As noted, any of these points will expand what is currently being done and do not necessarily have to be completed in order. So we can continue to use the open source software with an increased focus on improving data collection, updating, and workflows. This will require bullet point 3, which is some type of staff devoted to the process. As we have found with successful GIS systems around the state, a committed staff person is a requirement of an up-to-date functional GIS system, external or internal. We'll need to decide on one platform that all staff can work with. This will organize data in one place. It'll include the training of directors, managers, and departmental staff on how the software functions and how data is acquired and updated. We'll need to decide on how our external and internal portals will work. For instance, will residents be able to plug in their home address and find out about when leaf collection is occurring or their nearest park or trail through this external portal? Or will an internal platform provide staff the ability to see what data another department has geospatially inputted, and how does that help municipal functions? And finally, similar to our website working group that led the way to an updated website design, some form of GIS committee should mobilize to review various needs of the town and functionality within a GIS platform. As I mentioned from the SWOT analysis, a consistent narrative that we have found in research on other GIS systems employed by municipalities is for GIS to work, there needs to be a hub. The reason engineering has made our open source page work is because they commit a talented intern to the project and commit resources to the performance of that system. There is a need to have a point person accountable to the implementation of a more robust system, the organization of workflow and collection of data, and the ability to assist other departments as they perform their own research. For internal or external GIS platforms to function properly, data must be updated and regularly and organized daily. With that said, to spread the responsibilities of GIS input across each department can be done, but one individual must have the responsibility of overseeing the platform. The day-to-day operations of a GIS specialist go beyond updating data sets and organizing layers. They also troubleshoot issues that may arise between users, develop workflows for departments to include data, and most importantly, act as a resource when departments inquire about particular geospatial projects. The GIS specialist would be an important player on departmental projects, particularly when the project incorporates mapping, community imagery, or making inferences on what is happening in the community. An external platform for GIS allows Princeton to expand our ability to share data with our partners and the public. The external platform is a collaborative process across all departments, and it provides access to interactive mapping applications, allows the public to create maps, and facilitates the distribution of open data. In many towns, public use of a municipal GIS system allows residents to identify important municipal services and various features of a community written words or listed data may not portray. And some of the examples of the data are listed here. Public viewing of the GIS information with residents gives them the ability to visualize the community in nearly any way they desire. Perhaps a resident wants to view a setback on their property before purchasing a shed, or someone is concerned with their well water in the closest flood zone, or a student is studying historic districts and locations within town. These are all relatively common data sets within GIS and items we could make available to the public with an external interface. As the system would grow, new layers could be introduced, which could further the ability to examine our landscape. Public use of GIS would require daily oversight, plain and simple. Think of an external platform for GIS like Princeton's current SeeClickFix complaint reporting platform managed by Access Princeton. Although GIS in Princeton will not likely need to be a department within itself, it will need someone to provide oversight of the data and a platform as a whole. The person will also be responsible for establishing policies and procedures to ensure data which is personally identifiable, protected, or for some reason restricted is not being shared externally. As I mentioned before, the person will also act as a hub when departments are getting together to review various GIS data. So I wanted to display a few other towns' GIS platforms on these next couple slides. On the one before you, you're seeing Cherry Hill. Provides a very nice depiction of all the localized services, including trash, recycling, leaf, and brush pickup schedules, recycling facilities, parks, schools, libraries, and more. When you go to their site, if you were a new resident in town, which I know we've discussed this in Princeton, it would be a great opportunity for a resident to really learn the lay of the land as well as all the services that are available, mapped before you. Displaying Montgomery Township on this slide, their GIS platform allows users to toggle various layers, which are situated on the right side of the screen. The one before you shows all the township utilities. This would be a tremendous external tool in Princeton as residents regularly contact PSOC or the health department to determine the nearest sewer connection if they're thinking about switching from septic to sewer. Montgomery does employ a full-time GIS specialist that manages the platform within their engineering department and has been doing so for a decade or more. The last example here shows a static PDF zoning map in West Windsor. Static PDF pages I wanted to display to you so you can understand. They do display some form of GIS functionality. However, you are unable to search or overlay various forms of data or information. The spatial information is typically predetermined by the creator of the map and are unable to be queried. So it's more or less just a visual depiction of a particular area. So although this is a progress report, we're sharing some dates for the next steps of our GIS implementation in this timeline. I think a goal for 2019 includes the identification of best practices for internal application of GIS amongst departments. This can be performed with the assistance of engineering's talented summer intern who is expected to return. And the next phases would determine external platform capabilities and necessary software to accomplish those features. Decisions would also need to be made whenever we expand towards a different software better suited for external viewing, and what resources could be devoted to increase time and effort on the GIS system as a whole, and whether that looks like a full-time, part-time, contractual, or shared services agreement with a nearby town. In conclusion, we're happy that we've documented our current state of GIS implementation in Princeton, opportunities for growth and potential next steps. I believe this technology will pay dividends for the community moving forward once we implement the next year or so. Thank you very much. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take those.
Okay. Thank you for that report. Are there any questions for
Yeah,
Mr.
question.
Grosser?
Yeah.
Mr. Mason?
Considering the cost of hiring a full-time GIS specialist, I noticed we did mention possibly considering shared services with Montgomery. Have we explored that? Like what would cost the municipality to have a full-time person on our own? And I'm sure the one in Montgomery is pretty busy, but I wonder if there's enough bandwidth on that side to have that person work here also.
Great question, thank you. Yeah, I mean, right now, Montgomery's actually, I think they just recently hired a new GIS specialist. One of their former GIS specialists who had been there for some time recently moved to a different position. That being said, they'd probably be in a good place to speak to them about that. I know currently internally the devotion of a GIS specialist is limited compared to what you would have to do externally. Although they put a disclaimer on any GIS portal you go onto, this data may be different from what you normally would see, or it's being updated. People do expect to go on there and see the most recent information, particularly if you're looking for government services. So right. I think at this time, the proper process would be to identify what internally we would need to do to update it regularly from an internal capacity, and I think an external capacity would certainly need some type of person committed part-time or full-time. Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Is this something that, is this something that the county could help us with? I imagine that there are other communities in the county who are looking to do the same thing, and I coincidentally, not in preparation for this, shared with a bunch of my colleagues the City of Philadelphia property portal where you can sort of plug in any address and you get information about when trash is picked up, where the kids go to school, what the tax bill is. Is this the kind of, do you see us heading in that direction eventually? Or is that sort of like a unicorn for us?
So I think that's kind of why I'm sitting before you tonight is to get some of that guidance. If that's the direction that mayor and council are seeking, then we can start taking steps in the direction of what does that look like, for us to do that in Princeton. I think certainly some of the discussions that we've had are, from a GIS capability is if you could plug your address in, what information would be important to a resident? How could they use that data? So I think that's where we're beginning the discussions to find out what you would like to see.
And the county, do you know what the status of the county's efforts in this are?
What I would say, I'm sure we can work with the county, particularly for technical support. They may have layers, they're not as detailed as our layers, but they may be able to assist us as we build the system. And I'm sure they will provide us any technical assistance that we want. So we can definitely look to work with the county on this issue.
Okay. But you mentioned that other communities already have this available, so I'm assuming that it's already been addressed. But I was wondering whether there's any privacy concerns when it's a public portal, whether there's any concerns of any bad actors using it.
Yeah, and that's come up a few times, specifically with building. Certain plans are not able to be seen for public. They're private. There's personally identifiable information. From an internal capacity, it could be very important. Say, if there's maybe a potentially dangerous dog, if another inspector from a different department knew that before they went to the property, it would be important internally, but it wouldn't necessarily be external information we would need to share on a GIS platform.
Right.
That would be something that I think the GIS committee would look at in terms of reviewing that data to make sure that it was appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have the same question about the county because I know at least 2 other states do this by county. The county, and this led me to kind of guess that the cost is so prohibitive that it would be better to do it at a county. I mean, for the county to do it, it would be more efficient. But that's not to say that I don't think it's a great. I mean, the external part of it would be a great service for residents. It seems. I'm sure we all want that. I think the big question is going to be how much it's going to cost, because I'm guessing that it's going to be super expensive. So, but the internal one seems like that's going to make your work more efficient. From what I mean, otherwise, why would you be asking for it? Correct?
Yeah, I mean, the open source is more or less free, with the exception of the intern that has to plug information into it.
Well, the software is free, but the expertise isn't.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah, that's
right.
correct. And then obviously there's not an external platform for that, so that's where the cost would come into play. I mean, if you look at the external or the internal platform, it's extremely for various departments that aren't using it. I can see it being something that they would utilize probably daily if we expanded it to different departments. Engineering, I think, is working on getting it right for themselves because there is quite a bit of work that goes into it. Again, I think that's a question. Once we get some ideas of what the external platforms would look like in terms of cost, we could identify the cost and the reward.
I mean, it seems like a great tool for anyone to be able. I know my sister bought a house recently, and you could go and see all the properties around it, what their zoning is, what the trash pickup is, what voting district you're in, what all of that information. So I really think it's a great thing to strive for.
I have sort of a related question, actually. My brother-in-law is a real estate developer in Houston, and he has a subscription to a service. He was visiting here a couple of weeks ago, and he was showing me exactly that kind of information for properties in Princeton through his subscription service. It's like nationwide. And the question I have is how much of this information that we're talking about having in our GIS system is already in other GIS systems that for a fee we could access, and how much have you looked into like what we need to actually, like I'm sure our sewer operating information nobody's got that, and we have to populate that information ourselves. But it certainly makes sense to be looking into not duplicating effort that's already been done and getting access to data by subscription rather than generating it.
Yeah, agreed. I think the external platform, there'd probably be two different types of users. It would be the person that you mentioned, which would probably want to get next level with the different types of zoning and different types of information about that property, and then there would be like the newer resident that's looking for the services in that area. There's certain local information that we have that other places wouldn't have access to unless they've performed an Oprah search, for instance, of all of our septic systems in town. But we regularly will get information or Oprahs for that type of information. It would be great to be able to plot that and start seeing some different types of trends and as septics turn into sewer connections, how that looks. It's probably not of interest to everybody, but you're right. There are different subscriptions that have that information. We just wouldn't want to duplicate that.
Thank you for this report. I'm super excited about this because one of my priorities is for council and between council and the town is communication. And a system like this would just so ease, I think, the burden on the staff and on the council. For example, when we were having the debate about the bonus FAR, I was wondering, is my house conforming or not? Well, that information is not that easy to determine. I would love to just have had a website that I could go on where I could get all that information. So obviously cost is a big factor and we need that information, and if there's a subscription service that's not proprietary where they'd be willing to share the data, that would be wonderful. But I'm really excited about this and strongly in favor. I'd like to suggest a couple of other things. The Public Transit Committee has been talking about GIS layering for that. That would, for example, have both the freebie and Tiger Transit have the time of the next dinky, so that you're running around town, you're like, oh, when is the next dinky? And that information, the next 3 dinkies would just be on that map that you could just use, and you could pop on the freebie if you want, or Tiger Transit, or all that information could be available. What bike paths might you use that are not showing up on Google, because they're not streets that cars can go on. So all of that information I would love to see. I don't know if that's on your framework, but I'd love to see that added.
Yeah, Deanna's crew actually put that on the open source page. That is on the internal.
We have the bus
link,
information,
yeah.
not the any rail information.
Right, but yeah, all of that would be great. Thank you. And then 2 other, I wonder if there might be some synergy and possible for cooperation with the schools. Again, things like listing school districts, the ability to list, busing that's available, or if a bus is late, it could be, come up on that as well. And that, obviously I don't think it would be a 50-50 kind of thing, but maybe as a way of communicating, the school might be interested. And the third thing is, I wonder if anyone has thought about grant money that might be available. I mean, I'm sure you have, but, and I don't know from who, but it seems that there might be tech companies that are interested in encouraging this, and that might be an avenue to pursue.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question. So did you want to?
I just want to, I'm always got to say this, just put some perspective on just the whole process. Again, we're at the beginning stage of this process, and we're actually very excited about the whole GIS and doing a lot of different things, but I just want to give people some idea in terms of timing of all of this. We're at the very beginning. We need some of the very basic layering done first, and then we want to get to some of that the really cool stuff that we want to do, but I just want to put it in some perspective. We're really talking about very basic zoning layers, flood layers, very basic layers are the first things that we need to tackle, and then as we improve, we'll get to those more kind of fun stuff to do.
So I just want to make sure I understand. So the system that the engineering department is using now is the idea that will be the core of it, and then we'll be moving more departments onto that system, or are we still shopping around for what the system would be?
So the system that engineering is currently working with is the free system. So internally, we could utilize that and build upon that as long as we have the ability to have someone that could train us, because at this point, all that Deanna has, working there for that is an intern. So the training for other departments would be difficult. Again, the data from the other departments, they would need guidance on how to update, how to get that information up to date, and then succession planning and sustainability, how that was going to be updated regularly, at least for internal purposes. That system with its data can be moved into an external facing platform, but that requires research in terms of which one would work and what type of workflows that would consist of to update that data externally.
Okay, I think it'd be useful to have just an understanding of the licenses that we have out now with all the other departments to know what the timing of those are, because I don't think we want to be renewing, or before we renew a license for another platform, I think that's the time to make that decision. Do we want to try to move them over and what those costs will be? But it seems like it's just like at a basic level, that should maybe dictate where we're putting our energy and what the timing of it is. So we're not renewing something for 3 years and having that make the decision for us.
Yeah, we'll look at it the similar way with some of our other platforms, like the website and other softwares.
And are those like mostly on an annual? I mean, are most of those annual, or are they?
I think the S3 one is the S3 one is annual.
Okay, all right. So there's flexibility there.
Mayor, may I add a comment? I think this is a good, related but a little different, but something for us to consider as a governing body is, I know Dr. Sharma, a resident in town, has been really advocating for us to create another volunteer, either a board or committee called the Science and Technology Committee, to help review a lot of different scientific platforms that are out there and things like this right here, and to sort of like how CFAC reviews our municipal budget and plays an advisory role that's very important to us. This is something that I think we need, as a governing body, need to start to really consider, is creating that type of committee on the science and technology side. And it'll be good for a lot of these questions we're asking now. We have some, we've been known for having very great scientific minds, such as Einstein in town. So, and we continue to have great scientific minds. So I think that's something we really need to start considering establishing.
Okay. Is there anybody else who wants to comment? Okay. So, sounds like the next step is the group you have is going to continue to work on this. I mean, my sense from council is that we're very interested in making this work better, both internally, and it could be a great tool for the public. And it's just a question of, can we do it in a way that is going to make sense financially?
Right. And next steps will be a progress report, another progress report, just to let you know where we are, and then what resources would be needed at that point.
Right. And it does seem like, I mean, this is one area where there's a lot of other towns that have gone before us on this. So if they can show, I mean, so many of our Open Public Record Act requests are things that could probably, people could go on and get this information themselves. So having an understanding of, what was Montgomery's experience? Have they been able to save in other areas to help pay for this? It seems like they're really proud and happy about it. So I don't know if they've seen a cost benefit to having it or not, but it would be interesting also when you come back to get their experience and how much they're paying for it and whether they feel like they're getting the value for it.
Yeah, fortunately, they actually assisted us quite a bit through this process. So
great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay. Next presentation is from PSE&G, the request to close Washington Road. Are you presenting on this, Deanna, or is PSE&G here?
It is not PSE&G. It's, I think, between Kristen Applegate and it looks like me. So Princeton Police have received a request from PSE&G to shut down Washington Road from Nassau Street to Prospect Avenue. And while the agenda indicates that this could take place this weekend, May 11th and 12th, there has been a change in the schedule that this requested closure will be taking place, is requested to take place between 6 a.m. Saturday, May 18th to 6 p.m. Sunday, May 19th. And it's for underground work as part of the university's electrical infrastructure project. Since this is requesting work overnight and on a Sunday, that's why we brought it to council for consideration and for presentation. So that would be, it would be for construction work on the 18th and 19th, and then the rain date would be the 25th and 26th. We do not know how long the work is going to take. There have been some indication that potentially by the Sunday morning that the work can be completed, but they're leaving a little bit of a contingency in there to allow for construction to continue until 6 p.m. So if there aren't any issues, we will instruct PSE&G to move ahead with that schedule and get the appropriate communications out to the public about that anticipated work. Yes?
Question, the rain date that Saturday is the Memorial Day Parade, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. So they would be notified. Could they start a little later, like after the parade clears that?
We can ask about that, definitely. Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. And next we come to comments from the public for items that are not already on the agenda. Is there anybody who would like to speak to anything that's not on the agenda? Okay, seeing no one, then we'll close public comment and go on to reports. Oh, yeah, sure, sorry, I didn't see you.
I just have a comment to thank you all for passing the amount for PSRC. PSRC has become extremely integral part of my life since I came to Princeton back in 2004, straight from South Africa. I was serving in Peace Corps, and my son needed me here for help, so I came from South Africa to Princeton. And Newtown, Nobben, I knew, and PSRC has made my life enriched. And so I would request you that year after year, please pass the budget.
And I also want to thank you for heading up the senior nutrition program too, which is a really wonderful program, so thank you. Okay, so next is reports, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. DeShield for the first two reports on the Parking Ambassador program and on the smart cards.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to just give a quick report on the Parking Ambassador program. As council is aware, to increase the meter payment options for our residents, we installed new meters that take advantage of multiple ways of making payments, including credit cards, pay by phone, and coins. As part of that process, the technology has become a barrier for some people. As a result, we want to enhance the customer's experience. We're developing a program called the Parking Ambassadors Program. The Parking Ambassadors Program will be individuals who will be visible throughout our downtown. They'll be branded with T-shirts indicating they're parking ambassadors, and to provide assistance to anyone either trying to park using the meters, using the apps, asking questions about regulations. Primarily, these functions will be done by our parking enforcement officers periodically through the day. They will stop their enforcement activities or actually don these branded T-shirts and provide assistance to residents and visitors alike throughout the downtown, walking and providing assistance. In addition to that, we will have a number of staff also go out, at least initially, to provide that assistance also to kind of supplement that assistance. Once tonight on the agenda is also some changes that we'll make. When we make those changes, we'll also provide some additional supplemental parking ambassadors out to ensure that people understand what the changes are. And we hope this program will provide people with the additional support they need as they go through town and use our new parking system. The next item I wanted to talk about was the Smart Card program. Staff is recommending that the council authorize the continued use of the parking of the Smart Card in the garage indefinitely. This way, anyone who wants to use the Smart Card in the garage can do so, but there is one caveat that we must make. This is old technology. We're not sure how long that technology will work in the garage. We cannot reinvest in that technology, so if the technology does go down, we will not have the ability to bring it back up. But as long as that technology can be used in the garage, I think we should continue to use it in the garage. In addition to that, we're recommending the council that we authorize a program that would transfer any Smart Card balances, the entire balance, including the amount put on the card plus any bonuses, to the Passport wallet function for individuals who would like to do that on a voluntary basis. And what we will do in terms of that program, we're anticipating to do that program to begin no earlier than June 30th, but no later than August 31st. What we'll be providing at the next council meeting is a detailed outline of the process and a timeline for when that will begin for council and for the residents. So these are our recommendations on the Smart Cards.
Okay, great. Any questions for Mr. Shield on either of those? Yeah, Mr. Quinn? And then Ms. Niedergreen.
Okay.
Mr. DeShield, at the time of the Smart Card transfer to the wallet, would it be possible to have some staff or volunteers here to instruct people on use of the app while they make the transfer so that they're not waiting for an ambassador out in the field? First of all,
Absolutely.
To step back, I think it's great that we're implementing the ambassador program. It was one of the consultants' recommendations that we chose not to go with. I personally think that during the holidays, if we could up that and maybe even make it a volunteer opportunity for scouts or at the high school level. But if we could arrange for some sort of basic app instruction, even the library might be willing to help out with that point of transfer training.
Part of our initial plans was to provide that assistance as people are transferring. We're also going to be doing some additional training. We had one session, I believe, at the library. We'll continue. One thing I didn't talk about, which I should have, it's also important to note for the Smart Card program, if you're using the Passport wallet, there will be a transaction fee assessed every time you use the Passport wallet. So even though we're going to transfer the total amount, you will be assessed when we amend the ordinance, 20 cents fee will be assessed against your any balance that is transferred over. So it's important people understand that.
And just to pick up on that, sorry, and then I know Eve's next, at our next meeting, I believe, we'll have the revised contract with Passport that will reflect the new convenience fees.
Yes.
But if we could also be presented to council at that point, some other possibilities we might have to incentivize the wallet. I think there'd be interest in seeing that. So one incentive, obviously, is that the convenience fee is lower than it'll be 25 cents normally when you use the app, 20 cents at this point if you use the wallet. But if we could look at other ways to incentivize the wallet and be able to review those would be good. Eve?
Thank you. I just want to reiterate what Councilman Quinn said. Particularly, I think you have a lot of very tech-savvy high school students in town who are looking to get volunteer hours, and there would be, you know, a lot cheaper even if we paid them or didn't pay them or offered them some kind of thank you gift than having staff out there. And I'd love to see that on weekends, because that's when a lot of visitors come to town. I know parking enforcement is available. Again, there's the opportunity cost. If they're out there being parking ambassadors, then they're not enforcing, you know, turnover at the meter. So I don't know who on the staff might be responsible for that, but I would love to see the, you know, had Princeton high school students invited in to get training and participate in that. And then I did have another suggestion, which is, in addition to doing something at the library and having people on the street, I would love to see training sessions happen at, like, I know Councilman Cohen is doing something at Senior Resource Center, but at some of the other housing communities around, maybe at the next, you know, Witherspoon Jackson meeting, if they're amenable to that. Maybe some of the churches or other houses of worship might be interested in facilitating that, because I think especially for some of our senior citizens, they're just not comfortable with the technology, and if we can make them more comfortable, you know, again, the benefits of being able to add time while you're sitting in your car when it's raining out, which I just did, and I was very impressed with myself, you know, I think are really great. So I'd love to, you know, see that made available to everyone.
I just want to pick up on that too. I think it's a great skill, and that this can be a vehicle to help engage our seniors and other people who might have a smartphone but haven't used really an app or don't know how to download it, and I think it's an opportunity to help get that information out there. And Mr. Owen?
Yeah, I wanted to say just a little bit more about what we're doing at the Senior Resource Center, because they actually have people who volunteer there who are tech educators, who I believe are seniors, but who help other seniors get comfortable with technology. So to the extent that we're going to be teaching people how to use the app, it may be that we'll mostly be teaching these volunteers who will then continue to provide education on an ongoing basis at the Senior Resource Center, and they may be willing to do the same at some of these other venues that we're talking about.
Great. Yeah, Ms. Carmiller?
Yeah, I'm really appreciative of all the volunteers and help for people who are having trouble, but I also want to put in a plug for the app itself, that it is actually pretty easy. So if you have anybody who has downloaded an app, any app, should be able to do it pretty easily. So, you know, just to encourage people to try it, just go to Google Play or the iTunes Store, search for Park Princeton, and then download the app and follow the instructions, and it's actually it's a pretty good app.
Oh, you know what? If you don't use the microphone, then people can't hear, and then they complain to me tomorrow morning. So.
I was just wondering if...
Are you broadcast? We're broadcasting tonight.
Oh, wonderful.
So, yes.
I was just wondering if any of these tutorials could be made on a YouTube presentation, because I would find that very helpful rather than trying to go to a meeting. That if I could just do it, you know, if you, at the Senior Resource Center, if you were giving a tutorial, to make it a YouTube.
I mean, there's already a video on the website. I'm not sure how much that covers the app or if it's just the meters, but...
Yeah, but we'll make it entertaining so that people want to watch it.
Actually, can I add a comment? I just want to say that the app is easy to use, but it doesn't mean that people don't have issues with it. Because personally, I've at least a couple of times where the app was not working correctly, and I'm hopefully we're tracking those whenever there are any issues that that those are being tracked and that hopefully they can be addressed by the, I don't know, the developer.
Okay. All right, anything else? Anything else from Mr. Shield? Okay. I guess I'm up with the next report, which I see Mimi in the audience, so this is a report in honor of her. This is a report on the tour buses. So there's been a group meeting, myself, Deanna Stockton, Chief Sutter, and Lisa Maddox, who's one of the town attorneys. And this is the general plan that's being put into an ordinance that will be brought to council. So the idea would be that tour buses, and we still need to exactly define what that is, and that's one of the things that's being worked on, but essentially it's like you know it when you see it, but tour buses of a certain size would be prohibited from parking on every single municipal street except for those that are explicitly permitted. So the buses could still do the pickup and drop off on Nassau Street in those New Jersey transit stops for loading and unloading, and then they'd have to go and park down on Lower Alexander across from the Dinky station, and there'd be designated parking there for the buses, and there it would be pay stations and it would be $20 an hour for those spots, which is in line with other communities that have tour buses and how much they charge for the street parking. I don't think we're going to have a problem with cars parking there, because if you want to pay $20 an hour for the parking, you know, that's fine. And then one thing the other piece we still have to work on is working with the court to get the fine appropriate for if the buses are parking in areas where they shouldn't be. And as part of the implementation, we're going to be developing a suggested bus route map to hand out so that the buses will know when they do the drop off and pick up, like then how to get actually to those spots depending on which direction they're going. And we did a pretty big information campaign a few years ago when we first had the buses using those bus stops, but haven't had as much intensive communication over the past couple of years. So this will be another opportunity to get out there and communicate with all of those bus companies. So Lisa's going to be drafting up the ordinance, and she's hoping she can have that to us at the end of sometime in June. Are there any questions about the tour buses? Nope. Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that we'll be able to address if it's a tour bus but it's for the school district is using them.
Right.
Because I still see them occasionally. I can't tell whether it's for the school or if it's a tour bus that's parked on one of the side streets.
Right, and that's one of the legal questions, whether we can define it by use or other things. So we're looking at how we can define what we mean by a tour bus or charter bus in a way where we're capturing the issue that we want to capture. And I think everybody would agree it can be a public safety issue, especially on Nassau Street when there's so many pedestrians. Quality of life issues. So I think we're on solid legal ground. It's just how to define it in a way that keeps us on solid legal ground.
Because I do know that the school uses the same type of bus. So being able to differentiate that is important.
Oh, yep, go ahead.
I just want to say thank y'all so much for doing this tour bus thing. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I think what you're going to find is not only additional revenue, which is nice, but it's shocking how when tour bus operators feel like they're entering a professional space, they actually feel more confident in visiting the town. High-quality operators don't want to be rushed and getting people, get into Starbucks, hurry, 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 I'm going to stay here and I'm going to sweet talk the police. They don't want that. We want tour buses that are going to stay, dine, shop, and that kind of thing. And when you guys are putting in these processes, I just can't thank you enough. It's a very, very smart move. And I can't wait to make all my customers pay $20 an hour. So thank you so much.
Just, it's not each bus rider, it's the bus gets the 20.
Mayor, can I just add a quick question? I know that we already have an anti-idling ordinance, or I just want to make sure that perhaps that, I don't know if you can reiterate it, but make sure that the tour buses are not going to Alexander Road and sitting there for 2 hours running.
Right, I'll make a note of that, because that's another thing we should check on the fines to make sure that the fines are incentive not to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to council reports, and I'll start on my right with Ms. Niedergang.
I have a few reports from the Environmental Committee. They've been working on a resolution about incorporating a sustainability element into our affordable housing ordinances. This was distributed to council today, and I hope it's something that we all can read over carefully and incorporate those ideas as we do our ordinances over the next few months, because given today's report in the New York Times about, the millions of species that we're going to be using, again, the affordable housing ordinances, could result in, quite a bit of increased development in town, and it's just absolutely crucial that we do this in a sustainable way. From public transit, want to announce that we'll be meeting with Princeton University to talk about synergies that we can create between the Freebie and Tiger Transit, and possibly, if it works legally, and many other ways with merging those systems. Many people don't know that Tiger Transit has extensive routes in town. It can take you to the hospital, it can take you out to Route 1, as well as around Princeton, and many Princeton residents don't know about that. So I'd love to see that promoted more and harmonized more, and so we'll be meeting a week from today, I believe. From the Shade Tree Committee, just an update from Communiversity. Shade Tree distributed 650 tree seedlings comprised of 13 different tree species. They're grown by New Jersey Forestry under a grant from the Arbor Day Foundation. This was the greatest number of different species that Shade Tree has ever had to hand out to people, and I was at that booth for about an hour, and people were really excited, and to be given a gift of a tree and to learn how to take care of it. It was very heartwarming. They also, our arborist met with I think 2 of the third grade cohort at Johnson Park and at Riverside to also hand out to the third graders saplings that they could bring home and plant. So that was also part of Arbor Day. And also continuing from Shade Tree, they are working on a tree inventory, an electronic database that's going to be done this summer by Mercer County Community College interns, so that Shade Tree can figure out exactly what we have in town and keep an eye on the health of our shade trees that have tremendous environmental as well as aesthetic benefits. And finally, Shade Tree is also finishing up its commemorative tree planting protocol, which could be used to either commemorate someone who is no longer with us or to celebrate someone who is. And the first of these plaques will go on a tree that was planted last year in honor of former township mayor and former councilman Bernie Miller. So that's going to be really exciting. We haven't gotten the plaque yet, but we'll announce it so that those who want to attend the unveiling of it, if that's the right word, can do that. So.
Mr. Cohen, any reports?
I'll just report quickly on the bicycle advisory committees. second annual valet bike parking offered at Comm University this year. We had about 70 bikes that we parked in 2 locations, which isn't bad considering the weather. We now have 10 foldable bike and transportable event bike racks. They'll be used again at Greenfest. And additionally, on May 11th, which is the same day as Greenfest, there is a sort of a cyclovia at JW Middle School, where they're going to be doing bike education with the students there, and they're actually going to have some opportunity to do on-road safe biking in a loop around JW on Geo and I guess it's Ewing, or not Ewing, Linden, Franklin, and then coming back up. And then we're also participating in the bike rodeo that was mentioned earlier as a event from Human Services. And
Great, thank you. Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I don't know if you already were going to mention this or Deanna, but New Jersey DOT has responded to our request for the all pedestrian phase by saying they are willing to do a trial program. So that's scheduled for June 10th for 2 weeks. We can only do it at one intersection because what apparently the light fixtures at the other 2 intersections at this point don't have the technology to do it, but we're going to give it a try at Washington. So that's good news.
Okay. I have a few reports. The first one is the applications for the permit parking task force were due on Friday. We actually thought this meeting was going to be on the 13th, so there wasn't enough time to appoint the committee over the weekend. So I'm hoping that we'll have time to reach out to folks and have that ready for our next meeting. Will be on May 28th. Then you've already reported on DOT, which is great. There was a office opening for the Google Artificial Intelligence office, which is on Palmer Square, and Eric Schmidt was here, and the governor was here, and it was really great. Eric Schmidt was saying this was the first Google office that was opened not in a really big city, but he was super excited to be here. I was reminded by a researcher that I'm close to that there's a lot of innovation going on, not just at Google. And it just reminded me we're just really fortunate to be in this place at this time. And there's a lot of exciting work going on, both across the street at the university, I would say here in the municipality too, and lots of opportunities for collaboration. So it was really, it was a really exciting event, and the energy there was really great. And just people are super excited to be here in Princeton. And what they're worried about is that all the people from the other Google offices are going to try to bust in there. And so they're like, you can't come in our beautiful Princeton office. So let the Google people fight that out. But it was a great event.
They can always open another one.
That's true. And there was, we had an information session for local businesses about procurement that the university participated in, and school district participated in as well, and then Sandy Webb presented on behalf of the municipality. And I thought it was a good starting point for a conversation about how to demystify our processes. The three, the university, the town, and the schools were actually fairly similar, because the university, even though they're private, they take government money, so they have to follow a lot of the same rules we do. But we'll get the information out there for the businesses who weren't able to attend, and we're hoping that can be the put some energy into those, us being able to support those local businesses, and then being able to do business with us. And are there any staff reports? Deanna?
I can provide a little bit more information about what Councilwoman Crummiller had mentioned. We participated in a conference.
Is your mic on?
I think so. Maybe I'm just not speaking into it. We had a conference call with NJDOT last week, and they proposed allowing a pilot of an all-pedestrian cross phase at the intersection, at the traffic signal for Nassau and Washington Van Divender intersection. This is something that had been suggested in previous studies of crosswalks on Nassau Street that were completed by the borough, as well as our more recent work with Traffic Safety Committee and the Transportation Committees. So the current plan is that the Department of Transportation will retime the signal to provide for an all-pedestrian cross phase that will be activated only when pedestrians push the pedestrian push button. It will not come up unless the pedestrians push the button. And it will operate for a period of 2 weeks. This pilot will start on June 10th and will operate for 2 weeks. We'll have a follow-up meeting with DOT the week of the 24th of June. And if it's determined that it's been a successful trial, we may be allowed to continue to have the signal operate in that manner. So today they sent us a signal phasing schedule that we need to evaluate and take a look at it. Originally, what they had indicated is that the all-pedestrian phase would be timed only to allow a pedestrian to cross one leg at a time, and that's kind of defeats the purpose of having an all-pedestrian cross phase, because it's supposed to allow all movements, from all four corners for the pedestrians. So they have sent us the phasing, and we'll take a look at it to see if they have made accommodations so that you could actually cross two legs of the intersection within that time. And we'll continue to coordinate with the department on that. So we will be putting out more information, trying to do some educational pieces for the public to let them know how this is supposed to work, and that they need to abide by the rules of pushing the button and waiting until that pedestrian interval comes up for them. But we're really excited that this opportunity has presented itself to us after all of the hard work with the mayor and council of pushing back on previous denials. So we'll first try out this all-pedestrian phase. DOT is also allowing Princeton to define what is successful. How do we measure success in this trial, which is really key, because in our conversation they said, oh, well, you may find that you want to take it away immediately because traffic backs up. And we said, well, that's not going to be our measure of success, most likely. So that was another key win for us. So there is a fallback plan if we do find some intended consequences. They do have the ability to allow pedestrians more time to cross before the light turns green for cars. So right now, the way the signal is set up is that pedestrians who want to cross Nassau Street actually get 3 seconds head start in front of the vehicles. And so there is the possibility that we can adjust that timing as well as another part of the trial if we want to try something other than the all pedestrian cross phase. So that was exciting news for us, and we'll be putting out more information.
I had a question. If we were able to implement the all pedestrian crossing, do we foresee being able to do diagonal crossing where a pedestrian would be allowed to cross.
That's
what
the
I thought.
intention, yes. I mean, that's something, there are allowances for that. I know DOT was a little hesitant to change any crosswalk striping that would then indicate that you can go diagonally, but that is the intention of this change.
So if it's a pilot program, would we not be able to at least temporarily do some of that striping that would indicate individuals can do diagonal cross?
I think it's going to be further negotiations.
Okay.
Maybe the street just gets painted. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it seems like the way the timing is going to work is the cars, and there might be slight adjustments to this, but the car movement gets 2 minutes, and then the pedestrians get 30 seconds. So if you cross one way, then you have to wait another 2 minutes before you can cross. It's just not going to work. So we have to encourage people to cross diagonally if that's where they're going.
I'm sorry, do we, I know it's a pilot, do we do any change? Because I've been in places where they have the diagonal crossings and they're marked on the street. Can we do temporary striping? Is that?
We'll talk to them about it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, because, yeah, or there'll have to be signage or something to remind
Correct.
people. Okay.
Correct, right.
Thanks. This is
It's also
great
called-
news, by
If
the way.
anybody wants to look it up, it's also called a Barnes dance, Barnes. And I think it's Washington, D.C. has a flyer, an information card on how that works. It was site specific for them, but if anybody's interested, there is literature if you look at it under
Okay.
Barnes dance.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Dance, not stance?
Are there any other?
Dance like a square dance.
Do you have more reports, or is that?
That was it for me,
Okay.
thanks.
Any other staff reports? Okay. Is anybody here for something other than parking? Okay, then I would entertain another motion to, sorry.
I'll move that.
Amend the agenda to move ordinance introduction 2019-23.
Yeah.
And take that up next.
I will move that.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so it's moved by Ms. Fraga, seconded by Mr. Cohen. All in favor of amending the agenda?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we'll take up ordinance 2019-23, an ordinance of the municipality of Princeton concerning loading zones, parking, and parking rates, and amending the code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974. And before we delve into it, I just wanted to start by thanking everybody who's here. Many of you have helped get us to the point we are at tonight, and we really appreciate you engaging with us and hopefully getting us to a good position. I also want to thank the members of CFAC for helping us with this, other members of the community and merchant community, and our staff, especially Mark and Deanna, Bob Huff, and Sandy Webb for their help, and Christina Iliff, who's been on the front lines of this. Just to walk through what is being proposed tonight, and much of this was from the work session. The recommendation that what's in the ordinance is to switch the current 2-hour zone into something that's called the 3-hour central zone, and to lower the price for that. I would like to put something else on the table, which is to eliminate that distinction between the central 3-hour zone and the existing 3-hour zone, so there would just be 3-hour parking, and to create a uniform rate for that 3-hour zone of $175. The other change from what's before us tonight that I'd recommend is that there's a section in there about the grace period, and the implementation of that apparently is going to be more challenging because it's not something that's typical, so getting that to work with the app is going to be more convoluted, and I want to make sure that what we pass tonight is something that once we introduce it tonight, and if it comes back and it passes at the next meeting, that we're set to do the full implementation of the ordinance. So my recommendation would be to treat that separately. Mr. Cohen, did you?
Well, I don't want to steal Dwayne's thunder, actually, but do you want to tell the correction that needs to be made as well?
I think that's been made also.
Okay, but for anybody who's seen the old version,
Right,
you
yeah.
should.
You should mention that just so there's no confusion.
Oh, sure. Yeah, just reviewing the council packet, I noticed there was an error on the proposed ordinance when it came to the, and I didn't bring it up right in front of me, where actually, let me see if I can find it very quickly.
You're referring
What
to
happened
the-
was on 2019-23, it had for the Witherspoon Street west side between Lytle Street and Clay Street, it mentioned all-day parking. And it also did the same for Witherspoon Street west side between Green Street and Lytle Street, which is not what, that was not the intent of the governing body. So I believe
That's been corrected already.
Yeah, that's been corrected. So what's online now is what should be there.
That's right. So all of the west side of Witherspoon is 3 hour. Yeah, there's no all-day parking on that. west side.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So are there any comments from council before we open up for public comment? Ms. Crumiller?
Yeah, I support that plan. I think it's a good plan.
Me too.
Ditto.
Are we voting?
Well, I'd like to.
Well, I just want to
there's a lot of people who are here.
It's good to
I mean-
tell people so they don't spend a lot of time trying to convince us.
I didn't hear a roll call. I think it sounded like
Is there anybody who'd like to speak on this?
It's a straw vote then.
Okay. I know you're not shy, so.
No. I said I babysat this weekend and got a bug, but it was worth it. I just wanted to thank you. Can you hear me? Oh, I'm Jack Morrison, Princeton Merchants Association president, and who signed me up for this job, I don't know, but we thank you. It's best to say that. It's been a rough holiday season, as we all know, and to react and respond like you have and work with us, and we got Scott Sellers' blessing, and that's really, we wanted to be deficit neutral. We didn't want it to incur anything, and I think the idea, as Dorothea will say, is now we're creating the entire town as a central district, which is good. Frankly, at our end of town, down where Nassau Street Seaford is, we didn't hear that much about the rates. It's just more the meter and the process. So, but downtown, we definitely heard it, and a vital, vibrant Palmer Square is critical because we feed off of that. People come to eat at our restaurants, they shop at our stores, they get a great experience. And we're going to work hard, and I hope you'll work with us, I'm sure, to get that message out, to get people downtown. I'd like to thank Mimi and James and Dorothea and Joanne and Miss Lambros. She did a great job on this thing, so thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm basically going to do a ditto also, because I'm also just here to say thank you for this. It hasn't. I'm Dorothea von Moltke, 119 Linwood Circle and Labyrinth Books. Everybody stayed at the table, and I think in that sense it's been really a great experience, and sort of an experience, an example of you guys being open to input from the public and the merchants getting together. It's been made us closer also. So I think that there are kind of hidden benefits to having had to tow a pretty long road in just knowing each other better also. And I think we're going to we're going to do more things together better as a result of that. And I want to echo what Jack said, that I think we're already in this version of things to really try to help to get word out and make sure that people who have become resigned and sort of decided not to come downtown anymore, to bring them back. So we'd like to figure out ideas for that.
Great, thank you. And I should have mentioned, Jack's comments reminded me that we did bring this forward to CFAC, and they reviewed this plan, both the original plan and then this one, and it's, I mean, it's very hard to predict behavior based on just a few months, but their sense, if the parking patterns stay the same as they are now, that it'll be revenue neutral. And we've actually seen some promising developments that April was a really strong month in terms of people using the meters and having higher occupancy than we've seen. And so that's a good sign.
And this takes that whole idea of trying to train a customer.
I think you need to come to the mic, Jack.
I think one of the biggest challenges that frustrated you all and all of us was that the customer just wasn't figuring it out. Now he doesn't have to figure it out. So, again, we teach them about the app, we teach them about the town, the parking areas, and the PMA is about to unveil a really cool Google map, and it'll have parking, electric stations, all those different things. So thanks again.
Great, thank you. And just to explain the process, so people don't go out tomorrow and expect the change right away. The ordinance will be introduced tonight. If that's successful, then there'll be a public hearing set for later this month, and that's when the official vote will happen. And then once the ordinance has been approved, then there'll be then it takes a while for maybe Mark or Trishka can explain the date of like when that becomes effective and when people would actually should expect to see a change in the meters.
So the ordinance will have an effective date of June 17th, but it says that the provisions of specific sections of the ordinance that are the ones that are going to take some time to implement, that those will become enforceable as they are implemented, and with necessary signage and all the rest. So the public will be on notice, but it doesn't require an overnight implementation of all the changes of the ordinance.
So the right message then is the change would happen as soon as June 17th, but then on a rolling basis.
What I would suggest in terms of the effective date is no earlier than June 17th. We will be, once this comes back to council for its second reading, we will have a better timeline because I want people to know what the timeline looks like. So it will be sometime after the 17th. We will have brief council and the public by that time on what the timeline looks like.
Okay.
And it will likely be a rolling rollout.
Okay.
Mayor, and Mr. DeShield, would it be possible for us to use the robocall function that we use for leaf and brush and other emergencies to notify the public of the good news about the parking rates? No?
What I can say is we will definitely, and it's something that we have to sit down and talk about, a communication plan, a very vigorous communication plan. I don't know if that will be part of it, but we can figure out what's the best avenue.
Mayor, can I ask a follow-up question? I have been using the app, so I haven't been looking that closely at the meters, but at one point, Mr. DeShields, we talked about having a sticker on the meters to say press a button to have it light up. Am I recalling that correctly? Because it wasn't obvious to people, or is that something that we're just going to be including as part of the parking ambassadors, that to get the meter to respond you had to push a button, but that might not be obvious to people?
Push any button.
Well, that's a problem. You need glow-in-the-dark stickers.
I would say that this is something that can be maybe is information we can get from the parking ambassadors too, if that's still an issue or not.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to this? You don't have to speak. I'm just asking if anybody would like to speak. There'll be another opportunity at the public hearing, but you're welcome to speak. And do you want to say anything about what you're working on? Or you want to save that? No? Okay, sorry. Okay, thank you. Too bad you weren't using the mic for that. That's all right. Thank you. All right. So I want to bring it back to council and see if there's a motion to, and I just want to make clear when somebody makes the motion that we're making the motion as it was outlined before. So the current 2-hour, we'll leave that language, except we'll strike wherever it says central meter zone. So all the 2 hours will become 3 hours. And then I'm looking at Trishka too, just make sure that we're saying this right.
Well, I've already made a note of all the changes. I think if you
Okay.
just say from an implementation perspective, it's just one 3-hour meter, no differentiation. You want all the 3-hour meters to be 175 per hour, and you want to eliminate the grace period. And I'm actually typing an email to Lisa as you guys are doing
Okay.
this. So we'll then scrivener the changes on our end.
Okay, so is there a motion to that effect?
I would love to move this.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Niedergang, seconded by Mr. Quinn. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Cramiller,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson.
Yes.
So the ordinance has been introduced, and the public hearing will be on May 28th, 2019. Thank you, everybody. All right, thank you. Okay.
You're welcome to stay.
All right. Just alerting everybody to the correspondence section. This came late, but everybody has the letter, and then this is really just for the public record. This is a letter I co-signed with the Mayor of Franklin Township and the Mayor of Deputy Mayor of South Brunswick to the DEP Commissioner, Catherine McCabe, about the compressor station that Williams Transco is trying to build, and some of the environmental concerns that we have as the surrounding community.
Question?
Yeah.
Do you know why the mayor didn't sign it of South Brunswick? Why it was the deputy mayor?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It wasn't because I thought, was there opposition? I was just curious.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I'm not sure if he might be the. He might have. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, and then we come to our ordinance public hearings. The first one is 2019-17 bond ordinance providing for public utility improvements consisting of repairs to the Spring Street Garage in and by Princeton in the County of Mercer, New Jersey, appropriating $22,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $22,000 bonds or notes of Princeton to finance the cost thereof.
I'll move it.
Moved by Ms. Krummeller.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Cohen. I'd like to open up the public hearing for this ordinance. Do you want to speak, Mia? Okay. All right. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. And if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, can you please call the
Ms.
roll?
Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Cramiller,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson.
Yes.
And the ordinance passes unanimously. Next.
Mayor, I'll be leaving the dais for this since I'm an employee of Princeton Public Library.
Okay, so this is ordinance 2019-18, bond ordinance providing for various improvements to the library in and by Princeton in the County of Mercer, New Jersey, appropriating $300,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $285,550 bonds or notes of Princeton to finance part of the cost thereof.
I'll move this.
It's moved by Ms. Krummeller.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Williamson, and I'd like to open up the public hearing for this ordinance. I make no judgment.
Kate Warren, Jefferson Road. I just want to know if this is in addition to the money that we've already given the library.
This is in the capital budget, so it's a bond ordinance, which is different from the
So what does
operating
that,
budget.
What does that bring the total that we are giving to the library?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Shield if he knows that number off the top of his head.
That's okay. You could email it to me. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak as part of the public hearing on this ordinance?
I could just clarify that there is a minimum amount of money that we must give the library by law, but we do provide excess money on top of that to the library. I don't know if that's what you were asking, but.
Right, and we typically, they typically put in for capital requests every year that we help to fund. Right. All right. Is there any other discussion on council about this? All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Crummiller,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson.
Yes.
And the ordinance passes unanimously. Does Tim see us? All right. Next is ordinance 2019-19, ordinance appropriating $790,000 from the sewer connection fees for various improvements in and by Princeton in the county of Mercer, New Jersey.
I'll move.
Moved by Ms. Krummeller.
Second.
And seconded by Ms. Niedergang. I'd like to open up the public hearing for this ordinance.
Kate?
You're getting your steps in, or you can just sit up here instead of in the back of the classroom.
So does this mean we have extra money from the sewer fees that we're spending somewhere else? And if that's true, then why don't you lower my sewer tax rate?
This is for sewer work, but Mr.
Yes.
DeShield.
Actually, what happens each year, all of your sewer funds pay for both the operating of the sewer and the capital. So these bond ordinances are actually being paid through your sewer fee to do either maintenance or other capital activities we need to do in the sewer. So
Gotcha.
it's not in addition, it's part of the
Okay,
entire
thanks.
operations.
Way, we're using Wi-Fi sewer detectors that Buttigieg always brags about.
We have
We do it here.
We have smart sewers because we live in Princeton. So, yeah. Okay.
Princeton, even our sewers are smart. Awesome.
So this has been moved to second. Any further I'd like to close the public hearing. Any other comments? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Crummiller,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson.
Yes.
And the ordinance passes unanimously. Next is ordinance 2019-20, bond ordinance providing for sanitary sewer system and road reconstruction projects in and by Princeton in the county of Mercer, New Jersey, appropriating $1,515,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $1,515,000 bonds or notes of Princeton to finance the costs thereof.
I'll move this.
It's been moved by Ms. Krummeller.
Second.
And seconded by Mr. Quinn, and I'd like to open up the public hearing.
Kate Warren. So I'm just wondering, with any road reconstruction projects going forward, I think I sent it to all of you, was the 3D marking. So if you could look into that when the streets are torn up and then they go back together and they're doing the markings again, there is a 3D crosswalk that other places have been using, and it might be, if we could do it somewhere to start. 3D crosswalks.
It looks like it's painted in a way where it has the
effect.
Yeah, and it's shaking.
Right, and so maybe it would slow you down because you think, you're going to crash your car into an elevated sidewalk or elevated crosswalk.
Yeah, in particular, I know that you don't really have jurisdiction on Nassau Street, but the crossing at North Tulane, is it? And that, I mean, when you come up either way in the night, you cannot see anyone in that crosswalk.
Right.
And this is, rather than having blinking lights, which would be really great, these 3D effects.
I don't know if they look that way from all directions. Because I know we looked at it before and and it didn't we,
I
Deanna?
would say this could be an opportunity where we should find out who has them, and then maybe over the summer, because summer is coming up, we can see where everybody is traveling and get somebody to check it out in person and see what it looks like.
I was going to say maybe even for the all pedestrian crossing, the pilot program. That's something to consider.
That's tough because Nassau Street's the hardest.
Deanna, I think I recall a few months ago we had this discussion it was like a complete streets meeting or something like that, and we talked about the different types of graphics for crossings. I vaguely remember that, and I think, Deanna, you made some comment about that back then.
Yes, we have looked into it. We've provided the information, I think, to the ad hoc committee that is working on sidewalks, crosswalks, and lighting. And unfortunately, because it's more art rather than standard crosswalk striping, it is not allowed by the MUTCD, which is the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And I can provide everybody with a copy of Assistant Engineer Tejal Patel's explanation regarding that.
But I was also curious if anybody has seen one in person, because it looked to me like the graphic would require you to stand in a certain place to see the shadows from the right angle, but it felt like it might not work would work from one side, but I'm curious, because they look really cool.
You know, there could be a downside to this also. I'm thinking, I just hope someone who's driving don't see these and think there actually is some raised hazard in front of them and slam on their brakes or do something else. So I wonder if we should consider that possibility also.
Well, I think what Ms. Warren's just saying is that we look into it, and
It's just not allowed. She just said,
well,
it's against the law. We can't do it.
Okay. So Deanna's saying we don't even need to consider it because it violates.
Well, I think maybe.
Well, it's a national handbook, yes.
Okay. Where are we? We're on the road reconstruction projects. Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing, and is there any further comment? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Quinn?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
Okay, the ordinance passes unanimously. Now we come to ordinance 2019-21, bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements in and by Princeton and the County of Mercer, New Jersey, appropriating $7,433,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $7,061,350 bonds or notes of Princeton to finance part of the cost thereof.
I'll move it.
It's moved by Ms.
Second.
Miller and seconded by Mr. Quinn. I'd like to open up the public hearing for this ordinance.
This is what I really sat here for. Thank you. So A1, infrastructure, public buildings. I just want to thank you all for taking care of Monument Hall. I'm wondering under 2, and maybe it's just proximity, I'm not sure, why this building, the Witherspoon building, is not the nexus between that and the Public Works. Why isn't 2 part of 1? If it's the municipal buildings, but it's combined with Public Works.
I'm not sure if I understand your question.
Okay, so underneath 2 of infrastructure, public buildings, there's money that's going for the Department of Public Works and the Witherspoon building. And I'm just wondering what the nexus is. Why wouldn't the Witherspoon building be under the public buildings of the repairs at Monument Hall?
Are you saying that you think one is a subset of two, and why is it broken out like that?
I'm just wondering what the nexus is with the repairs to the, if there's any nexus with Public Works. Is it because it's the Public Works on John Street and it's close proximity, or is there no nexus?
I think it's a project.
Yeah, so again, I just don't understand why you wouldn't have segregated out the money for this building and incorporated it with Monument Hall if they're public buildings, but that's okay. And then I'm wondering what property you're buying on Harrison?
Isn't that the PFARS?
It's a PFARS
Okay.
building.
And then under fire, yay. I'm just wondering what the health and welfare equipment is. Any idea? Are we updating the gym? I mean, what is that? Sure, while you're looking for that, I just want to ask if my new eyes are so bad. Under 3, firehouse repairs, is that earmarked for 13 Chestnut Street?
I believe so. I know there are roof repairs that are being done there, so that's my assumption.
Okay, so that will cover the roof, and will that cover the boiler there also, do you know?
I don't know.
The boiler itself, I think that's under a different ordinance, a previous ordinance,
Okay.
what we did in the previous year.
But definitely the roof.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And then the other issue that is gym equipment.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to close the public hearing, bring it back to council. Any further comments or questions? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Quinn?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
And the ordinance passes unanimously. Next, we come to our ordinance introductions. The first is ordinance 2019-22, bond ordinance providing for curb improvements in and by Princeton in the County of Mercer, New Jersey, appropriating $90,000, therefore authorizing the issuance of $85,572. Did I say that right?
Yep. You did.
$90. Bonds or notes of Princeton for financing part of the cost therefore and directing the special assessment of part of the cost thereof.
Mayor, I had a number of questions about that, which I said, so I thought maybe Ms. Stockton or Mr. DeShield could, I don't know if anyone else had questions, but I was very puzzled by the whole thing, so.
Right, so I'll turn it over to Ms. Stockton to address those questions and explain what this is.
Sure. So the Heatherstone neighborhood consists of 4 streets, 2 that front onto Mercer Road, 2 that front onto Route 206. We've been working with them since about 2014 regarding a request from the neighborhood to install curbing. The Princeton standards require a certain road slope in order for the municipality to install curb on the roadways. These roads do not meet that standard. The request has been more of an aesthetic request that it dresses up the curb appeal of these properties. And so in this situation where it is not required by the municipality and it's to benefit these individual properties, we have the ability to put together a special assessment against the benefited properties, which would require the property owners to pay 100% of the cost to make these improvements, and then they would have the opportunity to repay that assessment over a period of time based on the useful life of the improvement. And in this case, it's a 10-year assessment period, and they would be charged an interest, some interest on that money. And so we went we've been working, as I said, quite a long time with the neighborhood to see if there was enough interest within the property owners to shoulder such an assessment. And we have half of the neighborhood, the lower Heatherstone portion of the neighborhood, is willing to be assessed, and this would allow for the installation of curb along property frontages, private property frontages, as well as common space. So while we don't have every single property owner agreeing to curb their frontage, we can still install curbing and not affect the drainage and other conditions on the roadway in order to do that. But all property owners would be assessed for the common space curbing. So it has two components. You've got the private property frontage and you have the common space curbing. And so all 16 properties in Lower Heatherstone would pay a portion of the common space, and only those that are agreeing to curb along their frontage would pay that additional piece related to that private property curbing.
Does that mean there's a gap in the curbing along the frontage of the property owner who doesn't want it?
Correct. There is a gap because that property owner is already included in this assessment. If when we are in the middle of construction and they decide, I don't want to be the only property without curbing, there is the ability for them to sign an agreement with us to add the curbing, and that would be built into the final assessment that we'll bring to council once the project is completed.
I want to thank you for working this out. It really was, it took years to get the agreement and work it all out.
Thank you, but I do have to pass that on. I have to pass it on to Assistant Engineer Patel. She really has taken this on in her first year with Princeton and was able to get it to this point with us. So she's done a great job.
That's great. And so we should interpret the empty room here as support from the neighbors?
I would hope so, yes.
Okay, good. All right.
Can I just make, not to rain on anybody's parade, and I'm glad that everything was able to work out, but I worry about the amount of staff time and energy and effort that was spent on something like this that is purely aesthetic. I mean, I don't know. What's the argument for doing this rather than saying kind of, I mean, aside from taking care of our residents, but where do you stop?
This was an atypical situation. I don't think that will be replicated in the future. I mean, there is, of course, other added benefits. It does contain the road edge a little bit more if you do have an overactivity of vehicles parking on that edge of the roadway. But this was definitely a special situation. I mean, I don't think we've encountered something like this in all my years at Princeton.
Okay. Has there been a motion in a second? No. Okay. Would somebody like to move this ordinance?
We'll move it.
Moved by Ms. Fraga?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Krummeller. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Krummeller?
Yes.
Mr. Quinn?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
So the ordinance has been introduced, and the public hearing will be on May 28th, 2019. Next is Ordinance 2019-24, an ordinance pursuant to NJSA 40A 12-1, et sec, authorizing an amended easement for the benefit of Block 1702, Lot 5 on the Princeton tax map.
It's 55.
Lot 55.
Lot.
It's lot 55.
I'm using the old agenda here. Thank you. Lot 55. And this is for the Paul Robeson House. Are there any
I'll move it.
questions or comments?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Kremiller, seconded by Mr. Quinn. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Kremiller,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson.
Yes.
And the ordinance has been introduced, and the public hearing will be on May 28th, 2019. Next, we come to Resolution 19-137, resolution authorizing the award of a contract to Straight Edge Striping of Bound Brook, New Jersey, in the not-to-exceed amount of $37,116 for pavement markings and striping services in various locations on municipal roads and parking lots.
I'll move it.
Moved by Ms. Kremiller.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Quinn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 19-138, resolution authorizing a construction agreement with Integrated Construction and Utilities of New Jersey, ICUNJ, in the not-to-exceed amount of $2,747,310.50 for improvements to Linden Lane and Spruce Street, contingent upon concurrence by the New Jersey Department of Transportation, the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, and the New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Trust. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Kremiller, seconded by Mr. Quinn. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please. Oh, I guess we can do this by vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. And next we come to the consent agenda, which contains items of a routine nature, passed by a single vote. Any items anybody would like removed from the consent agenda?
I'll move the consent agenda.
Moved by Mr. Quinn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Cohen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't think Eve and David heard. They were talking. Oh, that's fine. Okay.
Time for dinner.